Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I know I'm a bit late on this one, but there was the dev server and there was the lack of sleep, so hopefully you understand. We have another devblog today, which was posted on the 2nd of June 2018, and it is for the other Destroyer Premium, which is coming to the game, so you can get access to the closed beta of ships. You can also get the other packs if you want, the PT boat packs. That will give you access to the ships as well. So if you don't want a rank 3 ship, which I believe they've actually changed on the store. No, it's still a rank 3 ship. If you want like a rank 1 or 2 one instead, then you can get one of them for a cheaper price. But we had a look at the American one the other day, and it seemed to be mainly focused around the idea of AA, but also has some decent armament of it on it, and pretty much seemed like a general destroyer. There wasn't anything really that key to it. And this machine, the Karl Galster, which I'm pretty sure I'm saying exactly wrong on purpose, and it looks literally a carbon copy of it, but German. Let's talk about the history of this thing. So it was produced in 1939. It was a Type 1936 class destroyer. It was actually able to survive the war, surprisingly. It was given to the Soviets, or the USSR, as a gift for winning the war, basically, as a war prize, and it was scuppered in either 1956 or 58, I can't remember. So it didn't actually ever get taken out while in battle, and it's just very similar to the American destroyer. You can see why they've picked this one. It's pretty much a carbon copy of it, even in history terms, compared to it, which is just very, very odd. So let's get into the similarities between these two machines. Some time ago, we presented the Type 1936 class destroyer of the German Kriegsmarine and subsequently added it to the closed testing of War Thunder's naval forces. Today, we would like to present to you the Z20 Karl Galster, the only survivor of her class that went on to serve even after the war had ended, for the Soviets. In War Thunder, the Z20 Karl Galster will be a premium German 1936 class destroyer that will offer a significant upgraded anti-aircraft complement as opposed to its non-premium researchable counterpart. Right, so you're literally buying power. In comparison, the main armaments as well as torpedo complements have remained the same on the Z20. However, the anti-air department is where captains will truly feel the biggest change in their ship's firepower. Here, the Z20 has more than doubled its number of AA guns compared to the standard model. So this is interesting. Now, it isn't really something I brought up, but it's definitely something to think about. With the addition of vehicles like the XM803, the Chieftain Mark V, comparing it to the Chieftain Mark III and the 803 to the MBT-70, what we're getting is slight variations of incredibly similar vehicles. In the form of the Mark III and Mark V, I believe you get a slightly different engine, and that's really about it. Or there's something to do with its maneuverability, which is slightly different, but it's not a lot. When it comes to the MBT-70 and the XM803, you have the same engine, but the 803 is limited. You have not the 20 on top, but instead a smaller caliber gun, and also the armor is slightly different. But both machines are at the same BR. Now, where does the line hold for this? As has been described in these paragraphs here, there is going to be a non-premium version of this machine, but it is going to have significantly less AA. Does that mean that the BR of the Karl Galster is going to be above its normal tree equivalent, or is AA going to be seen as something which is equivalent to a machine gun on a tank, or is it going to have enough of an effect like it did in the alpha tests to warrant a BR difference compared to its compatriots? So there is some interesting ideas we have to think about here, and obviously without seeing the trees themselves, it's definitely something to think about, because we're getting to a point now where we're getting a hell of a lot of similar vehicles, or we're going to get a hell of a lot of similar vehicles. We now have 3 variants of the BF-110, 2 are new. should they be at similar BRs. Then we have the P40F10, which is joining the P40E in the American tree, but it has a slightly higher BR, when the only difference is a slightly better engine. So all of these things come together, and you obviously have to make value judgments on them, whether it is worth putting them at the same BR or changing the BR slightly because of the power that they have. So when we look at this, it's going to be interesting. It's hard to tell for me if the AA is going to be a component which is really going to heavily swing something like a BR. But I feel like the main things is going to be still maneuverability and the usefulness of the main guns. Besides of just having lots of AA guns, players can expect a varied amount of double and single barreled 37mm cannons, as well as single, double, and even quadruple 20mm AAs. This expansion in the arsenal greatly enhances the anti-aircraft defense of the destroyer and makes Karl Galster an extremely heavy target for air attacks. Right, so with a sentence like that, that makes me believe that it will have a different BR compared to its compatriot in the tree. And if it doesn't, then they're definitely selling power. And that is going to be a big issue for me, because that's something I am vehemently against. So, with that said, 20s, 37s. 20s and 37s, especially German ones, are a great combination. The reason for this is they're not just good at taking out aircraft, they're also going to be great at annihilating PT boats. And with the Alpha test, what we saw is a conglomeration of light cruisers, destroyers, and also PT boats all trying to work together in one map. Now, a lot of people have different opinions on the ideas. For me personally, it didn't work very well. Or I didn't really see the points in the PT boats fighting larger ships. It didn't really work. But on top of that, the one thing that really holds stuff like PT boats back is the fact that a lot of these ships are going to be covered in AA, which is going to be able to penetrate them and just be better than the guns that the PT boats are using. Therefore, they're just torpedo runners, and there are a lot of machines out there which can do that anyway. So 37mm and 20mm, even if there's no aircraft in the air, if somebody decides to spawn into a PT boat, they're going to get annihilated pretty fast when we look at it. And that is it for the Devblog. That's literally it. There's nothing else to it, and what can I say? There isn't any mention of what guns are on this thing. Maybe it's in the history section. Let's have a look. Nope. Well, I know for a fact it has 8 torpedo tubes on it in 2 sections of the thing. As I said, very similar to the torpedo tubes that you have on the USS machine, which is 2 sets of 4. It has 5 127mm guns, at least it says it here. And I tell you what, because that's naffed me off so much, what we're going to do is, after this, we're going to have a look and see how many actual guns this thing has. So this is the pack that you can see before you, right alongside the USS Cole. They are both the same price, they are both rank 3, so they're going to be similar in BR. And both of them seem to have quite a large emphasis on AA, which kind of makes sense. It's going to be interesting to see how they face up against other ships. I'm sure they're going to do completely fine, since all of the ships that they'll be fighting have incredibly similar guns. So it's going to come down to slight maneuverability and also skill with the torpedoes, which I'm really looking forward to. So you get a premium account of 15 days, 2,000 golden eagles, a decal of a swordfish, and a title of a sea sword. Now, when we actually add this up, this basically means that the ship itself is $35. Now, if you have one of the previous PT boat packs, you get 50% off this, so it ends up being $25, and then you take away the 15, so you're buying a destroyer for 10 bob. Now, a rank 3 premium for 10 bob is a really, really good deal, especially if you're interested in ships and want a good head start on the tech tree. Now, whether this is a good value for you, I would personally say it would be a good value for me if I had access to the PT boats. But overall, as somebody who sees themselves, I'm talking about me here, as a person who the naval part of the game is going to be the least interesting for me, it probably isn't worth it for me. But for somebody who wants to get into the beta, who wants a head start on ships, who really enjoys naval combat, I think it's a steal if you can get it for 10 bob. Or, well, I should say $25, but, you know, as I said, the destroyer itself is worth $10 in that. But what I'm going to do is actually have a look at the AA on this thing, since the Devblog doesn't say it. It would be really nice if it did. We're looking at 2 twin 37mm, so that's 4 37mm, 7 single 20s, and 2 quadruple torpedoes. Okay, so that isn't actually that much, but that is for the Type 1936 destroyer. So that is the standard on the 1936. I'm guessing the Z20 Karl Galster, or Galster, had a little bit more. So let's see. The ship carried 5 12.7 centimeter SKC-34 guns in single mounts with gun shields, 2 each superimposed, fore and aft of the superstructure. Then the 5th mount was positioned on the top of the rear deck. Guns were numbered 1 to 5. Anti-aircraft was 4 37mm in 2 twin mounts abreast of the rear funnel, and 6 20mm guns in single mounts. And then, is that it? So it actually has less AA according to this? I don't know what to think. I mean, we're going to have to see. I mean, obviously with the Type 1936 destroyers, there's going to be different variants, and there's going to be different armaments on those, especially when it comes to the AA, because they are much easier to change than the large guns. But overall, if it's that close in armament, then, and everything else is obviously going to be very close as well, I'm not too worried about the BR differences. There are 2 things I do want to leave with you before I go, just some tidbits of information. So somebody asked on the forums about the T32's mantlet, and then Scarpa, who is one of the community managers for Gaijin, responded on the War Thunder Reddit, trying to clear up the situation. So he said, not reduced, an error, dev server is rarely a final release. So yeah, it seems like they made a mistake when doing the high-quality updated model of the T-32, and that's completely fine. Everybody makes mistakes, it's known about, which is the main thing, so it's going to get its armor back on its turret, or at least hopefully it'll get some of it. It was obvious it was a bug once you read the preliminary patch notes, and there was nothing about it in it, meaning that players would have had to go into update 1.75 with a nerfed vehicle and not being told about it, and also being an unhistorical nerf. So yeah, it should get its 100mm back on the front of it, meaning that it will still be a great hull down and a wonderful machine to use because of that. Every other situation, maybe not so good. The second extra bit of information is a low-resolution picture of what the fleet may look like. Now, I'm going to put a huge disclaimer here, and the reason for this is when I look at this, first of all, it looks incredibly different to the other trees that we have seen. Second of all, it obviously doesn't have all of the machines that should be available to it, so this is the American tree that I can make out, and obviously in the premium vehicle slot, there should be a few more premium vehicles there, and there seems to be other vehicles which may be missing in the tech tree. But if this is the tech tree, then what we see is 4 ranks of vehicles, namely ships, of course, which would make sense compared to the leaks that we've seen, and that is around about the right amount of ships if we look at the preliminary patch notes. But yeah, the premiums are missing, which is a bit odd. The speculation is this was taken off of the dev server. When I was on the dev server, I saw nothing like this, so therefore, because that is said, I can't either confirm nor deny it, but it is definitely something to put out there to see if you want to have a crack at it and think about what's going to go up against what, and it seems like a lot of PT boats are going to get absolutely rammed by a ton of destroyers if this is the case, and I feel incredibly sorry for them, but it is how it is. If they cut the destroyer's maneuverability, maybe the PT boats will have a chance, but you won't get anywhere near the destroyers because of the secondary armaments, and also even the large armaments, where if they hit you with one of them, you're dead. So, yeah, we'll have to see in the future. Tomorrow I will be doing the preliminary patch notes roundup if there isn't anything else, but for right now I desperately need some sleep. Thank you all for sticking with me these past few days. I know it's been a long slog. I hope you've enjoyed all of the content, but I'm gonna go die for a bit. Have a wonderful day.